Let me move on to tax reform, sir, because a big step forward for this major legislation yesterday. A key Senate committee voting to advance the tax bill to a floor vote yesterday with two of the biggest Republican holdouts, Ron Johnson and Bob Corker, flipping to yes. Is that accurate?
The vote was there. Everybody could see that they were on board. I think they had some concerns, and the president and the leadership in the Senate were able to lay those concerns so that they were willing to support the bill, move it, allow it to continue to move. And as far as we in the House are concerned, we don't particularly care for their bill. It's a good bill in many respects, but there's a few details we'd like to see that, and changed. But if they can just get a bill passed so we can get to conference, that's what we weren't able to do with regards to the health care bill. If they can just get something out so we can all sit down, both House and Senate, and finalize the details, I think we can get there. It's not that big of a deal anymore.
So what are the sticking points now? Are you still dealing with the SALT deduction, the elimination there, and the difference between the pass-through and the corporate rate? Take us behind the curtain here and what's being talked about right now as the president used that closed-door meeting yesterday on Capitol Hill to urge senators to push ahead with this plan.
Well, I wasn't at the meeting. I was in the House. I was doing other things yesterday, so I'm not privy to what was going on. But I think you can tell that to us, the SALT stuff is very important to a lot of our members on our side of the building. I think the health insurance mandate is something that is something we could accept in the House. I know it's something that is in the Senate bill. It actually frees up some dollars to be able to work some other issues with. I don't think we're that far apart. I think, if you remember, the president put together a working group of the House, Senate, and all of his administration officials, and they came up with a framework that everybody agreed to. And so what we've been doing, the House and the Senate, filling in the details of those principles. And I think we're very close. It's just a matter now of working out the details. And again, I think yesterday was a perfect example. There was a couple of folks had some issues with a couple little things.
Right.
They were able to work that out, and I think down the road this is what's going to happen. We're going to continue to work on this thing. I think it gets done very shortly.
Congressman, I'm going to just play devil's advocate, not surprisingly so on this panel. But Corker flipping is a bit of a stretch. I would say he's putting in actually what I would like, that tough mechanism that actually looks at the fiscal side of the tax plan. And it seems to me that's something that would get him and Flake and McCain overboard. But I'm not so sure it's something the House would even look at with the mechanism if the dynamic scoring of the GDP growth doesn't go to the trajectory expected. Then all of a sudden there would be an immediate tax hike coming in. And so that's how he's looking at it. So I'm not so sure that everyone's, it's a kumbaya moment.
Well, I'm not enamored with that particular provision myself, but I think you're looking at the glass half empty rather than half full. I think what you need to do is look at from all the other economists that have looked at this thing. You look at the past history of tax cuts, and you see that when these things get in place, the size and scope of the one that we're talking about here, you're going to see some really record-breaking growth, I believe. And we won't have to worry about this trigger.
You shouldn't mind the mechanism then, if you believe that to be accurate.
No, that's why I say I'm not a big fan of it, but I think it's going to be irrelevant. So to me, it's not a deal breaker. Right. I think that the growth we're going to experience out of this is going to be phenomenal, and we, as a country, are going to really see what I think is going to be some phenomenal growth by our business sector as well as our individual folks who. This is what this is all about: empowering and allowing the middle class to keep their money to be able to grow our economy. And this is where, if you listen to the president and this whole thing along all the discussions have been had, it's about growing the economy, and we can grow a lot of our problems, grow a lot of our problems that have been occurring over the last several years.
Well, this trigger that we're talking about that got Senator Corker on board, and maybe Langford, and maybe Senators Ron Johnson and Johnson did vote to get this bill out of committee yesterday. I just want to add, it is an automatic tax increase on the American people in 6 years. What if we're in recession, fellas? What if we're in recession? Are you going to get on board? Then you're going to have to move to make sure that taxes don't go up on the American people. And the bill is already written that way because the individual tax cuts expire in about 10 years. So I don't know. Again, I think that this is much ado about nothing. For Corker to make some sort of stand that he's a budget hawk, well, then step up with some legislation to deal with Medicare and Social Security then. I just think that this is, again, political posturing.
What do you say about that?
I don't disagree with you. I think this is, if you watch the Senate operate, this is what they do. They withhold their votes because they have a particular piece within a bill that they do not like, a particular item in there, a particular provision that they want changed that may be beneficial to them personally, may be beneficial to them back home. But it's about the political posturing of being able to have, help make that bill a little bit better. And sometimes it is made better. And so that's the process we go through here. It's not necessarily pretty, it's not necessarily great, but everybody talks about making sausage. I think you denigrate sausage when you talk about it the way we do it. But it's a situation where that's the normal process of how we go through. And I don't think it's something that hurts the process. I think it's just we all understand it here. That's how it works. So I think again the senators got to yes. I think that's what's important to realize that we all now are trying to figure out how to get to yes and trying to figure out how to get to no. And I think this is the kind of mindset that I think it's going to take to be able to get this bill across the finish line. And I think we're there.
What can the president really do? I mean, I know you're traveling on Air Force One today with the president to St. Charles, Missouri. Well, what can the president really do today to move the needle in terms of getting the public to understand the details of this plan?
Well, I think he continued to push for it, explain the misconceptions that are out there, that some of the fake news is putting out there, some of the Democrat talking points that try and scare people into believing this is not a good deal. Tell me that the present tax system is a good deal for everybody. Nobody will answer that question, yes.
Right.
So let's look at how we can fix it. And is this a perfect bill? No, there is no such thing as a perfect bill. There's never going to be a perfect bill. But this gets really, really close from the standpoint that this will drive economic growth for individuals.
Yeah.
73% of this bill is structured for people under $200,000. They're going to receive most of the money on the individual side of this bill. So this is a middle-class tax cut that's going to be driving the money to those folks who will then spend the money that will enable us to grow our economy.
Well, it's largely simple. A corporate tax cut. I mean, and that's really the bulk of this plan. But Congressman, thank you very much. You made great insights this morning. We appreciate it. Congressman Luetkemeyer joining us.
My pleasure, Maria.
We'll see you soon, sir.